This video is going to be showing you how to use some of the basic tools in Photoshop. So these tools on the left here in the toolbar. We'll be taking you through a few of the most commonly used ones, the ones that you'll be using mostly in your assignment or class task anyway. Okay, so there's a couple of websites I wanted to point your attention toward. The first is called dafont.com, and this allows you to search. Oh, that's my phone going off. This allows you to search for different fonts within different themes, I guess, that you could search up and then use within a Photoshop layout or artwork. The second, for this example, I'll be using an image from a graphic artist's website. His name is daveraposa.com or .blogspot anyway. He creates digital artworks that recreate characters from computer games and comics. I'm going to be using this image here of a Solarian for the different tools available to you in Photoshop. I've just seen down here that there's a full-size version of this picture. I'm going to use that to make sure that the resolution of my picture is as high as it can be. I'm just going to come down here and say copy image, and then within Photoshop come back and say file new, which is Command N. What Photoshop will then do is say, hey, do you want to create a new artwork at the size of the image you've just copied from the clipboard? You go, yep, okay. And then you go ahead and paste that image in, which is Command V. Then what you get is a canvas, or I'll just push F so I'm just focusing on the artwork itself. You'll get an image with two layers, a layer called background with a padlock, double click that to unlock it, and the artwork itself. All right, I'll just do a quick demonstration of how layers work in Photoshop if you don't already know. And what you can do there is click on text, for example, the text tool. Doesn't matter what font or anything that you've got pre-selected that comes up by itself, just go with whatever's there. For this example, I'm just going to type on the bottom layer, and you won't be able to see the text come up. I'll do example text. Alright, you can't see it there because it's sitting underneath the artwork. I've just clicked on my move tool here to move the text, but you can't see where I've moved it. To see the text itself, you need to turn off the layer that's sitting on top. Sorry, that's my phone again. That is the layer that's blocking the text underneath. And to see the text underneath, you can do one of two things. Turn the layer on top off by turning the eye off, so then you can see my text here. Or you can click here on the layer that you want to move right to the top layer and drag it on top of the artwork so it's sitting on top. Turn your artwork back on, and the text is floating on top of the artwork now. To resize text, Command T. This applies to any image or layer that you have in Photoshop. You can resize it. This is a pretty boring font, but I'll be showing you in a different video how to use Dafont, that website I just pointed out before, and change and sort of spice up your fonts a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off my font layer now and just take you through a couple of these tools here. The first one is the move tool. You can move your artwork around. That's pretty basic. Alright, you can also move around any other layers that you paste in on top of this particular image and move them around. The tool beneath it is called the selection tool. That's pretty straightforward. You just select an area of an artwork to do one of two things. Usually you want to delete something like that. I'll just undo that. Or you want to delete the outside of that box. And you can do that by coming up to select and say invert the selection. That will turn the area that you will delete now to the outside of the box instead of the inside of the box. I'll push delete and it deletes the outside instead. I'm just going to undo that by pushing Command Z. And to get rid of these dots, if you've accidentally clicked on the marquee tool and you've made a selection by mistake and you see these dots hanging around and you don't want them there, you can do one of two things. Command D to get rid of them, or come up to select again. Anything to do with selections is in the selection menu, and say deselect. That's a selection menu. Now if you hold down any of these tools within the toolbar that have a little black square at the bottom right, that means that there's more options available to you. So that just means that there's a rectangle, a marquee tool, and then a circle. You can select a single row of pixels, horizontal and vertical. Alright, I don't need to show you those, you can have a look yourself. Now this tool, the lasso tool, this is called the magnetic lasso tool, which means it'll stick to the edge of an area that you want to cut out. Now equate the quality of this cutting out, that is the detail of cutting out, to a kindergartner with scissors. It's going to be a rough cutout. It's not going to be an exact extraction of the background. It's only going to be like using scissors. Equate it to scissors, and you'll get rough cut edges. And what I'm going to do here, I'll just stop and explain that where I've started my selection, I need to end at the same point where I started to complete the loop. If any of you have seen that movie Looper. Okay, so that means that I've completed the loop. I've created like a little island around the outside of what I want to cut, and then the same principles apply here to the tool that is above. Alright, I've created not a rectangle selection but a custom selection around a bit of a layer that I want to cut out. I can delete that area, or I can cut it and then paste it, and it creates a brand new layer for me. And if I click and drag, it's just going to make a big mess of a selection. I don't want that. You want to be able to move it, so you need to come back up to the move tool again. The keyboard shortcut for that is just to press V on the keyboard, and you can drag the head around. You can put it back exactly where it was. You can resize it. Command T, remember that Command T? Make his head huge if you want. Oversized Solarian head on top of like a bobblehead Solarian. I'll undo that. Okay, and that's the first couple of tools. The first three there have been shown: Move tool, Marquee, and Magnetic Lasso. The brush tool you will use, I'm going to create a new layer to paint on. Okay, I'm going to call this layer, by double clicking on that text, I'll call it Painting Layer. And what I'm going to do is come up to my brush selection. These are all different shaped brushes I've installed. I'll give you guys a run through on how to install extra brushes and where to find them at school. But I'm just going to resize the brush head itself. This will apply like a paint splattery brush to the artwork, and I'm going to change the color from yellow to a color that's already in my artwork. And to do that, you click on the color palette here. That will give you a little dropper, an eyedropper. That means it's going to pick up a color from within the artwork and change it to the color that's already in the artwork. And I'll just click a couple times and add, a bit of this brush. And you can do as many brushes as you want, obviously. Coming through, adding a few different brushes on, and I might change the color from that to something else that's in the artwork, like this reddy color, and then there you go, that's the brush tool. And by painting on a separate layer to the artwork, it allows you to actually move those brushes around if you need to, on a separate layer. Okay, it's good to keep each little addition you make to an artwork on a separate layer. A little side thing I'll show you here is the opacity. That means see-throughness of your layer. If you drag it further towards the left, it will become more invisible. Further towards the right is more of a full image. Alright, so we've gone through Move tool, Marquee, Magnetic Lasso, and the Brush tool. Eraser is pretty straightforward. There are some extra eraser tools. I'll leave you to discover what they do. The text tool I have shown you quickly, but once again I'll show you now. Click on the text tool, see where it's going to end up. Am I typing on this layer? Am I typing on the head? Am I typing on my painting? Am I painting on this text layer here, which I'll now delete? It's turned off. I'll make a new layer and I'll click, and it's turned that new layer into a text layer, and I'll say example text 2, and you can see it's been typing. As I've been typing, it's pushed my text off to the left. Don't worry, just click on the move tool, move it back to where you want, Command T to resize, and I'll make it bigger. And in the next video I will show you how to add textures and different fonts to a artwork. And one last thing, drag any of your layers to the level that you want them on. For example, I want this particular text to be behind the Solarian's head. I'm just changing the color first. And what I'm going to do is just drag to the layer beneath the head, let go. Now the text is sitting behind the head. I can move it, behind the head, to the side, whatever. And that's how you are introduced to the first few tools in Photoshop. More to come. See you soon. Bye-bye.